on Sunday, JobKeeper, the economic lifeline that has supported hundreds of thousands of Australian workers, is coming to an end. The economy bounced back remarkably well, and that's continuing. But this will be the first real test of just how significant the recovery really is. Recent analysis commissioned by Small Business Australia found that close to 500,000 people could lose their jobs, and nearly 100,000 businesses might close forever. This week, we're taking a closer look at some of the industries hardest hit and what the future might hold. Today, the hospitality, food and accommodation industry. Nationally, 32% of the sector is still on JobKeeper. In Victoria, more than half of businesses are relying on that economic support. And meanwhile, in some places, like Far North Queensland, that number is closer to 100% as international borders remain firmly shut. Wes Lambert is the CEO of Restaurant and Catering Australia. He joins us now. Wes, thanks so much for your time. How worried are you about the end of the week and this deadline looming?
Well, I'm actually in Far North Queensland now in Port Douglas. And I've spoken to many of our members in the industry here, and they are 100% still on JobKeeper and certainly facing some uncertainties. They have told us that their bookings and their patrons have picked up in the past few weeks, and they do expect to have a strong Easter, but they have had so much losses through COVID that they're certainly not ready to be off JobKeeper. And we've seen around the CBDs in Brisbane, in Melbourne, in Sydney, in Adelaide, and Perth, that many businesses remain down as much as 60% in revenue as those international tourists, those international students, domestic visitors, and everyone still working from home for the most part has depressed those businesses.
Let's stay in Far North Queensland for a moment where you are at Port Douglas. Is there any evidence that these government subsidised flights are working?
So they don't actually start until the 1st of April. And so we'll see those coming on board in the coming days. But ultimately, the few destinations in Far North Queensland that are coming into season, there would have been normally discounted flights and many flights to these destinations from around Australia as they enter their season. We really would have liked to have seen a hotel voucher that would have allowed you to get, let's say, buy 2 days, get one, or buy one, get one, to fill up the accommodation hotels, which certainly have been the hardest hit. It's yet to be seen exactly how the discounted flights will help all of Queensland. Certainly the majority of restaurants, cafes and caterers are in southeast Queensland, which is not as of yet getting that discounted airfare.
Wes, what about these interest-free loans? Is anyone in the position to take those up where you are?
Oh, look, ultimately, the hospitality industry has been saddled with debt through all of COVID, taking on debt to pay JobKeeper because of the way the system was set up, and certainly taking on additional rent debt by deferring 6 months of their rent through the landlord code of practice, which is expiring in the coming days. Many restaurateurs have said, look, their businesses just can't support any further debt. And most restaurateurs lease their space, where many other business types in accommodation food service may own their hotel or their accommodation hotel and have a bit more assets to borrow against. We certainly don't want to see the precarious nature of businesses taking on too many loans. It certainly needs to be measured and only in areas where you know you're going to recover.
Wes, rightly, we are focused on places like Far North Queensland who are just not getting those international visitors, but you've also touched on the CBDs who are still not getting that traffic from overseas arrivals as well. What would be the best thing for those businesses in Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, other capital cities? Would it help if people were forced back to work, public and private sector?
Oh, look, ultimately, private businesses under the Fair Work Act can't 100% force their employees to come back. They certainly have to have due care. And while the COVID pandemic still is a crisis around the world, and we still have people in hotel quarantine that are positive, we do expect that it will take a bit of time before all the government offices and all of the private offices are back to full capacity. But certainly that would help. In addition, we do know that the Treasurer has said that the Job Maker program has flopped and has had only just over 500 signups for $800,000 out of $4 billion. We certainly would like the Treasurer to redeploy those funds to the 2.5 hardest industries: accommodation, food service, arts and entertainment, and tourism. It's already been voted in. It's already been borrowed. It's already been earmarked to be allocated for stimulus. Why not just redeploy it where it's needed?